Hello, I'm in the Kingdom of Fife today, in Largo, and the tower behind me commemorates a most remarkable son of that village. A man called Andrew Wood, a sailor who became the Admiral of the Scottish Navy. You could call him the Nelson of his time. Even as a merchant skipper, Andrew Wood had won so many battles with English and Portuguese ships that King James III knighted him on his own deck and bestowed the lands of Largo upon him. This tower is all that remains of his castle. Where I'm walking was the bed of a shallow canal from the mansion house to the kirk, so that the old Admiral could arrive in style by boat. His oarsmen were English, French and Portuguese prisoners of war. His last journey down the canal was by torchlight to his resting place in the vault of Largo Kirk. This is where Andrew Wood was born, in a thatch button ben in the Kirkton of Largo. He'd become a merchant trader when James III began to take notice of his success against the enemy. Scotland didn't have a navy worth talking about at this time, in the late 15th century. It was ordinary seafarers of the Lothians and Fife who safeguarded this bit of the coast. This model of the yellow caravel, Sir Andrew Wood's ship, commemorates a famous sea battle against 3 English ships. It was watched by crowds on the shore, 2 Scottish ships against 3 English, and the English ships surrendered. Great battle. You need a long time to read all the commemorations here, for the foundation of the kirk goes back to the 12th century. Sir Andrew Wood also commanded the Great Michael, the biggest ship of her time. In pious memory of Sir Andrew Wood of Largo, who after faithfully serving his king and country, lived and died there in an honoured old age, and was buried where he had worshipped in this church, AD 1540. Well, that great old sea dog wasn't the only famous man to be born in Largo. What about Robinson Crusoe? Well, there was no such thing as a Robinson Crusoe, but there was a real man, Alexander Selkirk, who was born in Largo, and he chose voluntary exile on that island off the coast of Chile. And he lived there for 4 years and 4 months. And the parents are buried in this grave, and I'm away over to see it. Well, the letters are hard to make out, but you can see it. J.S. John Selcraig, E.M. Euphan Mackey. That's how they spelt Selkirk in these old days, Selcraig. Well, Alexander was the 7th son, born 1760. With the bridges over the Forth and Tay, it's easy enough to get to Largo now, but in former times the quickest way to Edinburgh from here was by steamboat from Largo Pier. This ancient path to the sea tune of Largo is a right-of-way known as the Serpentine, and it connects the 2 villages, Lower and Upper Largo. The writer of Robinson Crusoe, Daniel Defoe, was of the opinion that he who will view the Kingdom of Fife must go round the coast, and that no coast in all Great Britain has so many quaint, charming old seaside towns with histories so interesting. The sea tune is certainly quaint, and in fact it's a conservation village, and so it's kept its character. That's a statue of the real Robinson Crusoe, the Largo man, sea tuna Largo man, Alexander Selkirk. He was in a pirate ship called the Cinque Ports. The crew was a bad one. He didn't like the skipper. He was a strong, independent-minded man. He said, right, put me ashore. And he was on that island for 4 years and 4 months. This is a model of the cottage where the real Robinson Crusoe was born. He was such a natural navigator, he was made sailing master in the South Seas at 22. At 28, he was alone on his desert island. Daniel Defoe, the writer, must have really absorbed the Selkirk story in detail, for he gives a very good description of Juan Fernandez off the coast of Chile. What Selkirk didn't know was how he could cope with loneliness, for his life had been spent on crowded ships where living space was hard to find. At first he lived in a cave. Later he moved into the hills where he built 2 huts. The island is 12 miles by 5 miles, and every day Selkirk used to climb up to a lookout point at 2,800 feet in the hope of seeing a sail. This is a plaque put up near the lookout point, and it records that Alexander Selkirk was landed from the Cinque Ports galley, 96 tons, 16 guns in 1704, and was taken off from the Duke in 1709. Mrs. Ivy Jardine is related by marriage to Alexander Selkirk. She married a descendant of Alexander's brother. She's not only researched every detail of the real Robinson Crusoe's life, but journeyed there. What was it like, I wonder?
Well, Tom, just getting there proved to be quite an adventure. First we had to get out to Chile, to Santiago, and hire a 4-seater little aircraft, and it actually flew for 2.5 hours over the Pacific Ocean. Then we were landed on top of a mountain, and we had to take to mules to get down the mountainside to the seashore, and then the fishermen were waiting to take us on a 2-hour sail across the Pacific Ocean to the point of the island where the people lived. I felt it was such a great pity that Defoe's fictional hero has somewhat overshadowed the real hero of the story, and the whole world knows about Robinson Crusoe, but not so many people knew about Alexander Selkirk. So this is why I decided to write about Selkirk and visit the island and tell as many people as possible about Selkirk.
And how did the islanders react to you, Ivy?
Well, of course, they were expecting our visit because they'd been told who we were and why we were coming to the island. And they were very, very friendly, cheerful people. And some of the songs that they sang to us in the evening were about the great days when the ships used to come from Britain and Holland, and about the famous Alexander Selkirk, because he is a folk hero in Chile and on the island, as you can imagine.
About 120 years ago, Robinson Crusoe's island, Juan Fernandez, became a penal settlement, and the people who live there today are descended from them. It was October 1711 when Selkirk arrived home at last, so splendidly dressed and altered in appearance that even his mother didn't know him. But he was restless and unhappy in idleness. He took long solitary walks. A favourite was to Keel's Den, beside an ancient castle ruin. Yes, but one day the solitary walker met a milkmaid, milking a cow. Her name was Sophie Bruce, and he fell in love with her. And he whipped her off to London, leaving his sea chest behind him. It looked as if he intended to return, but he didn't return. He went to sea again, but before he went to sea, he left a will to Sophie, leaving everything to her. And we don't hear of Alexander for a long time after that. We next hear of him in Plymouth, getting married to a merry widow by the name of Frances Candace, who kept a pub. And on the very day of the marriage in St Andrew's Church, he made a will to her, leaving her everything. And we next hear of Alexander being drowned at sea. And Sophie contested the will of the widow, and she lost out. Largo has never forgotten their sea-tune hero, Alexander Selkirk, who contracted fever off the coast of West Africa and was buried at sea.